So you can't walk towards more sacred connection, more depth, more love without walking towards the thing that hurt you the most.
Mark Groves, a highly acclaimed expert in relationships and personal growth, inspires a bold new vision for fatherhood, authentic, connected, and present. As the host of the successful Mark Groves podcast and co-author of Liberated Love, Mark has inspired millions with his candid approach to building epic relationships. In this episode, Mark dives deep into the journey of fatherhood, sharing 7 impactful lessons from emotional healing and modeling communication to creating lasting bonds with your children. This is the essence of being a grounded father in today's world.
Where do you feel the most incapable maybe right now? Like if there's one thing you want to either fix right now or you want to ensure that you get right, you want to master.
Well, I thought I was a really exceptional communicator before I had a kid. And then the emotional bandwidth went down, and then my ability to dialogue with his mother, with Kylie, got less productive. And I'd say the number one thing I want to continue to make better and better is my ability to communicate with her, but also to communicate in front of him with her. So the framework, I guess, is that I just see him as a teacher. I really resonate with the idea that whatever need I have a hard time meeting of his is probably where developmentally a parent of mine had a hard time meeting mine.
What does being a capable, fit father look like for you as a dad of a now 20-month-old?
I would say the first thing is mobility, like the ability to reach down and be with him and not even think about that. Like I don't have any challenges from it. I'm like that guy in the movie Old Dads now, because I'm like 46 in 5 days or something, and my son is 20 months old. So I for sure chose to have kids much later than most people.
Right.
And so it was imperative to me that my son gets the father he needs, like someone who's like able to take him on adventures. Like I couldn't imagine being like, I can't hike this mountain. No way. I want to be like, you can't, let's go. Like that has always been something I'm really passionate about. Before I had a kid was about fitness, but it met a whole new level to have vitality, for him to see that the choices I'm making, where I would see my dad sometimes go on diets when I was a kid and stuff like that. I don't want him to know, not that unconsciously that message was hard, because it was like body is always something you struggle with.
Yeah.
And I don't want my son to inherit that.
Yeah. Your work is relatively new to me. We were introduced by some epic humans, had dinner. It didn't take long for me to be in conversation with you to know that every following conversation would be deep and meaningful. So thank you. And by the way, I'm looking forward to this one. When I think about your brand, though, and what I have been exposed to, it feels like healing is a big part of your work. Being able to look in the mirror, being able to have the conversations that are difficult, being willing to be vulnerable and authentic about like, hey, that didn't work. Let's try something new. You know, and even this natural conversation that we were having was just about, you know, you leaning into your health and becoming the most fit that you can be. Going back to your relationship with your dad, what needed to be healed with you and your father that would and has maybe allowed you to now step into a role as a dad? Talk to me about healing.
You know, when I was young, my dad used to sit down with me and talk to me about my relationships. So like he would be the one who'd ask, like, how are you doing? What's going on with you guys? And I have so
You're talking
many,
about romantic relationships, yeah.
So like in my teens, I have a lot of really fond memories of play with my brother and my dad. I'd say like where more the strain was for me was like my mother's overwhelm. That like was something I definitely had to resolve. Like the desire to take care of other people. I was, as the youngest, it was like, well, if mom's okay, I'm okay. And she was just highly stressed a lot. And my dad was, it felt that there was somewhat of a reprieve from that. Like he was really present. There was a wound that I had with him, which actually I need to clear with him because it became like much more apparent to me recently, is that every year on my birthday, there was a conference that my dad would go to. And he would say to me like, oh, I'm going, he'd call me on my birthday, blah, 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 blah. But as a kid, I was like the only one in the family who dad was away for his birthday. And that actually was really painful for me. And I think seeing, like when I look at my parents' relationship, I feel like this is at least my experience, is that my mother had needs that seemed pretty important to her that he didn't sometimes attend to. And as the one who wanted mom to always be okay, I found myself like almost like siding with her in things and then creating triangulation with my dad. I probably have more to repair with my father than maybe my father has to repair with me from that sense. Although my dad was not, I don't know that he even knew that I took on so much, you know? Because he would ask me a lot about my relationships and we'd talk about human behavior and psychology. And that actually was so powerful for me because that allowed me to even know that was okay. My dad was divorced before he met my mother. So there was an unconscious story that you could have a relationship end and find love again. And then my brother and I were the products of that relationship, my sister from his previous.
Fellas, if you're like me and you're serious about leveling up as a dad, well, I've got something for you. It's called our Brotherhood Experience. It's a no-cost, no-commitment way to see what Front Row Dads is all about, and where you'll get a chance to connect with other guys like you who are focused on being family men with businesses instead of businessmen with families. Through the experience, you get a deep dive into our core values, what drives our community, and who this brotherhood is truly for. And trust me, by the end, you'll know exactly if this is your tribe or not. If you're ready to give it a shot, head on over to frontrowdads.com/experience to sign up for a free event, and we'll see you there. Again, that's frontrowdads.com/experience. Now let's get back to the show.
But I remember going to him in my 20s and complaining about my girlfriend. And he asked what happened. And I told him, oh, she was complaining about something. And I've resolved what I am about to say. I would no longer say anymore. But I said, if it's so bad, why are you with me? Like, just leave. And I told my dad this, and he was like, what? No, Mark. And I remember exactly where I was sitting in my car when I was talking to him. Because he said, a relationship is a separate entity. There is you and there is her. And you need to care for that separate entity. And when you say something like that, that is not that. And at the time, I remember being like, yeah, like, cool, Dad. But man, it hit somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I remember that being like a profound moment. I don't think I was mature enough to provide it.
And this is in your 20s.
This is in my early 20s.
So I want to like bookmark that for a second because, or at least like put an exclamation point on that. I want dads to hear that your father had a conversation with you in your 20s that was profound, that now at 46, you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? That's the type of fathering that I'm very interested in continuing to chat about, because there is this belief, I feel, I hear, I sense that like people will find front row dads and their kids are in their 20s. They're like, I wish I would have found front row dads when they were younger. And I'm like, why do you think that your influence as a man is somehow now non-existent with your children?
Right.
You've graduated, they've left the house, and it's done. Like, I just want to honor your father, and I want to honor you for being in that relationship in that moment. That's really cool.
He's been that throughout. Like if I went to my father with a complaint or a challenge, like during COVID, our family was very divided on perspectives.
Yeah.
And my father said, nothing will ever divide this family. And I was like, thank God, like you need to hear it. Like I get emotional thinking about it. Because that was like the thing I was most afraid of.
Yeah.
And when he said that, it was like, he wasn't going to tolerate anyone in the family's like natural tendency to go into fear and division when we're afraid. He was like, nope, when are we seeing you?
Wow.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever divide this family.
Yeah.
What are other phrases that you attribute to him? Like he always used to say this, or Like, how did he what did he say that you remember, or how did he make you feel that you remember? What's his brand?
It was really funny. You know, when we would drive, there's a joke in our family about getting taught to drive by our father because it was like so dysregulating. Because he would have these standard lines that everyone in the family knows. And when you were merging, he would say, "Speed up or slow down, set a trap." And it would just fucking enrage you because you're already like 15, you know, trying to figure out. And he would have, "Put an egg between your foot and the gas pedal." Yeah. He had these like standard. And I was saying to Kylie, my wife, that I can't wait to teach Jasper how to drive and use these lines on him, you know, because they were like both bonding in. And my dad actually, we were allowed to swear, he would say, on the construction site. So if we were building stuff in the backyard or I remember we were building this, my brother and my father are falconers. Yeah. So they like hunt and fly falcons. And my brother's like very renowned in that space. And I remember he said we could swear on that. And my mom didn't know this. So she's like sitting in the kitchen, windows open, like out to the yard. And I said to my brother, "Pass the fucking hammer." And my mom just comes out like, "What is happening?" And my dad's like, "It's okay. We can swear on the construction site." So he's always been.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. A sense of depth and levity. I feel so blessed for that because like, I think I said to him, "Were you always like this? Like, were you like that in your first marriage?" And he said, "No." And that's what I learned from it. You know, I learned much from it. Yeah, and I would imagine my sister and I's, because my sister's 9 years older, so she would have had a very different experience before, you know, in her younger years, being from a previous relationship. So I feel very lucky because he modeled emotional fluency.
Did you feel you didn't have a lot to heal in that relationship? That it just was, you know, I'm trying not to make assumptions, but it kind of feels like this was a really healthy relationship.
It was.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
It was. I think most of my work was like my enmeshment and codependency with my mom. Yeah. Which, you know, as a kid, I broke the law twice. I got caught both times. I was never meant to be a criminal.
Better early and when the stakes aren't high.
Yeah, when they don't become permanent records. But I remember I broke the law. I had like tried to return jeans for money. I had so much shame about it. And, you know, I was sitting in the back of the store and they're, you know, the police are there and they're like, gonna call my parents. And my dad comes up to pick me up. That's like every guy, you know, kid's nightmares, like dad is en route. And he drives me home and he says to me, "Why did you do it?" And I said, "I needed money for grad." And he said, "Why didn't you just come to me?" And I don't know why I didn't come to him. But I think I got grounded for like a month. But he said he just gave me stuff to do around the house that I wouldn't normally have done, like build things, and he paid me to do them. And I just remember that like level of grace being offered to me was like everything. Because I was in my like most shame, you imagine. Yeah. And he met me in that. And like, it was really life-changing for me.
Talk to me about, you know, emotional intelligence, trust. I'll keep it to those two words as it relates to how you view parenting now with Jasper at 20 months. Talk to me about, you have this great father as an example. Sounds like you have this wonderful relationship and you're a new dad, right? So, which is wonderful also. And these early years are so important. Yeah. Right? They're so important. We hear all the research, and I mean, I know it intuitively. There's a part of me that wishes I had another child now so I could use all the tools.
Bring all the tools.
Yeah. But like, talk to me about your strategy of how you take the best of what your father gave you and all of what you've learned. And like, do you have a playbook right now? Do you have established strategies? You're like, this is how I'm choosing to be as a father. This is why it's important.
Yeah, you know, my nephew is about a year and a bit older than our son, a year and 4 months. And so I was around him a lot. My wife's an identical twin. So we were there for the birth. We spent a lot of time with him. We gave birth to our son in my sister and brother-in-law's house.
Wow.
Yeah, which we call the earth womb because it really is this like built into the hill, etc. But it's like beautiful. And I remember sitting with him, with their son, and he was playing with this like a truck, a farm truck. And in the back, it had all these different hole shapes, like a farmer, a cow, a chicken, or whatever. And I was sitting with him, and he was trying to put like the cow in the farmer hole. And I was thinking, it doesn't go there. Like, I got to tell him, like, that's not right, so that he learns the shape goes in the right place. And I remember having this moment of awareness where I was like, he actually has it right. Like, he's just with the world. That the shape doesn't have to go in this space, that there's no
That's right.
And I could see myself wanting to project onto him that there was a proper outcome to this game. Like, when all the pieces are in the truck, we can empty the truck and start over. And I remember just being in that moment and not correcting him and feeling myself correcting myself, like feeling myself that like I'm learning from this child to be in the world. And where else do I have preconceived notions of what success is or outcomes? And someone taught me that. And that at least gave me an awareness of preparing to be a dad. There's a line from Alan Watts that has always really stuck with me, where he says, like, a baby isn't born knowing depth, that something is nearer or further, that something is bigger or smaller. You can watch a baby try to poke the moon. And I thought about that a lot when my son was really young, just like him laying when I would go for walks with him and put on a rucksack so I could get a workout while I was taking him in his little stroller. And I would watch him look up at the sky, and I would think of that all the time. It's like he doesn't have assumptions. So my framework to it is, well, one, to be really mindful of where I get activated by him. And that my job is to actually explore that and resolve that. And if I do get dysregulated with him, to repair with him. So I repair with him when I get reactive to something.
What does it sound like?
So, like, for example, I went away for work for like 9 days. And he was like, this was only a couple months ago. Actually, when I saw you in Austin, I was gone for a total of 9 days. And when I came back, he like didn't want me to go anywhere. He was like with me, which was great from an attachment perspective. I'm like, oh, I might be meeting the level of boob. This is good. Like I had some heavy competition.
The level of boob.
Yeah, I had some heavy competition before.
Yes.
Still do though. If the boob or dad boob, which I totally understand. I wish I could choose the boob. And I just looked him in the eye. And I said, Jasper, Dad has to go away for work sometimes, but I always come back. And I love you, and I'm thinking about you all the time. And you can kind of see him like processing it and looking at me, but actually experiencing an emotion. It's like when he was grabbing for a while there, still every once in a while, like fish hooking me, and sometimes it hurts. And I remember one time he like really put a scratch in the side of my face, and I was like, ow. And I had said to him like, hey, can you say sorry? He like, you hurt, Dad. And I apologized to him and you could see him processing shame. And he wouldn't say it. And of course I eventually I was like, all right, like he's not, can you say sorry? I did it maybe 5 times. And he was with my wife and I when he was doing this. And then he just goes, sorry, Dada. Sorry, Dada. And he kept saying it. And I could just think of like all the times we don't know how to hold shame.
Yeah.
We desperately want to repair. So the framework, I guess, is that I just see him as a teacher. I really resonate with the idea that whatever need I have a hard time meeting of his is probably where developmentally a parent of mine had a hard time meeting mine, because I don't have the template or resource.
Totally.
And so that has always really resonated with me, that like there's a lack of capacity I have for something. Like his cousin is, 16 something months older. And I have an older brother who's 17 months older than me. So when something gets taken out of Jasper's hand, I'm like, now I'm big enough to save Jasper. No one saved me. And so I see myself processing that in real time a lot.
I'm excited to ask you this question because I do see you as being so vulnerable and open and ready to have a conversation about growth. Where do you feel the most scared as a father? Where do you feel the most, incapable maybe right now? Like and said another way would be, if there's one thing you want to either fix right now, or you want to ensure that you get right, you want to master, you want to develop this skill, what might that be?
Well, I thought I was a really exceptional communicator before I had a kid. And then the emotional bandwidth went down, and then my ability to dialogue with his mother, with Kylie, got less productive.
Yeah.
And I'd say the number one thing I want to continue to make better and better is my ability to communicate with her, but also to communicate in front of him with her.
Yes.
Because I think there was a part of me that thought, and also the need for resolution, I'm like, it's hard for me to take a pause sometimes. Like, I want repair now. And for her and I think I was under the assumption that he's too young to be impacted by when there's dysregulation between us. But oh my God.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's even to say it is naive.
But, and understandable though.
Yeah, because I'm like, he's like 6 months
Sure.
old. Like, we're just a lot activated. But I now see like that's safety to him. Like,
Totally.
if mom and dad aren't good, am I good? And like, if mom's not good, am I good? Really, even more specifically. And is dad making mom not good? Do I need to make dad good so mom's good? I can see how we do this developmentally.
Yeah.
And so that for me is like my number one work right now, is really leaning into mastering again, but now from a way more resourced, a higher level of responsibility, because he's learning how to communicate and hold capacity for dysregulation from his mother and father.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, that is so imperative, because he's going to model our communication with whoever he ends up in relationship with. And so that has had me take more pause, be more curious, validate, empathize, use all the strategies, as we talked about in our conversation on my podcast. It's like the strategies, but the felt, as you were mentioning, it's like the felt sense of what's going on in my wife's body. How is she feeling? Is what I'm doing working? Because sometimes I'm like, this isn't working.
Yes,
I need a different strategy.
That's right.
So I'd say that is the main thing that I'm like, that's more important than anything. But I've seen that skill set required even more in the world now anyways. You had said that on the other side of a truth is another truth, like on the opposite side. And I think being able to recognize the value in the conflict, and that one of the rules my wife and I have is that we see the other person as being able to see something the other person can't see.
Yes. Yes.
Brilliant. So like there's brilliance in her frustration, and another agreement we have is just a fierce dedication to the truth, because so many relationships dance around the truth. And I'd say the other thing that I really got brought into my experience by reading The Baby Bomb from Stan Tatkin, and I forget the co-author, where they talk about like the relationship has to come before everything, like husband, wife, whatever, mother, father, before mother, son, mother, child, and father, child. And that for me, when her and I were speaking about that, I could sense the tension of that. Like, wait, my son or my partner? Okay. And then when we got deeper into it, there was like a recognition that like we have to be one first. And then that allows us to be resourced for him. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
You said dance a second ago, and it reminded me that earlier this year I made a bet with my front row dads that I would learn how to partner dance with Tatiana and lead her on the dance floor. And I took 6 months and I learned how to partner dance. And then I danced with her in front of our group at our retreat in front of about 40 men. And it was awesome. Like, it really was great. And a lot of the guys reacted very positively to it. And one guy in particular, what was at the end, Tatiana was talking to the guys. They were asking her a couple questions. And she said that one of the things she loved about learning to dance with me was that when we would dance at home, that it was like the kids, if mom and dad were dancing, everyone was safe. And my buddy Ryan Levesque, who's a member of the community, heard that and said that he got chills when that statement was made. And he had me like take a step back and really think about that. And like, yes, when mom and dad are dancing, everyone's safe. In our home, for probably the last year, Tatiana and I have been in great rupture. Like, it was a very tumultuous, tension-filled home. And our kids felt it. They responded to that. You know, they just have this energetic field in the home, and it's tight, it's tense. And then when she and I started dancing together, like, immediately, like, Ocean, I can picture, like, he turned around the corner and saw us dancing, and he's like, oh, and he came running over and jumped up and hugged us and wanted to dance with us. And now that we've been singing and dancing more in our home, and that the energy is lighter and we're tighter and more connected, even my older son, Tiger, like, entered the room the other day, and I saw him dancing and singing for the first time in a while.
Wow.
And I just, it doesn't have to be dance for somebody listening to this, but you get the metaphor.
Yeah.
And whatever that dance is for you, thinking about how your children feel and respond, and listening to their bodies and watching their spirits, and imagining that it is very much reacting to the temperature that mom and dad set. So to honor your point of, like, the importance of your relationship and how you two learn to regulate and repair is the most important thing. Brother, I just want to say that your work is so important. I know you've created a massive impact. Your podcast is wildly successful. Your social media, where you're giving your thoughts and ideas and opening up to the world, is wildly successful. I also know that I'm just scratching the surface on who you are and your life story and all of that which you can bring. So I look forward to more and further conversations, whether they're in front of microphones or not. And also, I want you to know that I'd love to be a resource for you in your journey as a father. And anything I've ever learned, I wanna share with you, and just cheering you on from Austin, wherever your home ends up being permanently. But I do really appreciate how you've shown up today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for trusting me with the dad squad. This is the front row dads.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And for all of you listening, watching, like, so grateful that you traded time to hear me. That means so much. You can find me at markgroves.com. I have a community called Aligned, and all that's in there, where all my courses are, that are more like how to get through a breakup, dating, and how to step into your fullest self. And that community is, like-minded, and all the people who want to just be better. And podcast, wherever you find them, Mark Groves.
Thanks for listening today, fellas. If you got value from this episode, I ask that you take 1 second right now and you share this with another dad in your life that you respect, that you know is committed to becoming a better man, family man, and businessman. And on that note, I want to honor you for choosing growth. Your family will thank you years from now for all the effort that you're putting in to learn the strategies so you can show up more fully for them today. Take care.